Hey folks, Rob here with something a little different this week. Rather than just do a straight playthrough of a game, this time I'm going to be looking at a bit of a divisive C64 game. This is none other than Morpheus, written by Andrew Braybrook for Graftgold and published on Telecom Soft's Rainbird label back in 1988. There's a lot of aspects about that which I'll get to later, but compared to his prior works on the C64 in particular, with games like Gribbly's Day Out, Paradroid, Iridium, Morpheus tends to come across as one that is fondly remembered or strongly loathed. That comes down to the fact that, unlike those prior titles, it's a slow-burning game and it really requires a bit of effort to understand how its systems work. So what I want to do with this video is actually play the game, but also show the basics of how these systems work and how you play the game and what you're meant to do. I'm hoping in doing so that if you're not a fan of it, you strongly loathe it, maybe you'll be convinced to give it a shot. At its heart, Morpheus is an action game. Unlike many other action games, however, it's layered on it with a number of different layers. So your primary goal is to defeat Morpheus the Intelligence, a being that has the ability to create what are aethers, which are basically sub-universes. These, basically they're being created and there's more. They're increasing both in number and their size. And what this means, it's been projected that eventually they will grow to an infinite size and basically destroy the universe. Which is where you come in. You're tasked as part of a commercial operation that is tasked with collapsing these aethers and saving the universe from a certain fate. Now, there's 50 levels, and in each of the levels you warp in and you basically need to collapse what are called orbitals. You should see these coming up as I let the title sequence run. In addition to that, you'll also battle the Morphi. They are the inhabitants of the aethers, which in one of the big themes of the game is an element of evolution. They start out passive, easily dispatched, they're slow, they're not very aggressive, but over time they become more aggressive, they become more focused on stopping you, and they're also more resistant to your weaponry, and this adds to an aspect of the game which we'll come across in a bit. Beyond that, you collapse orbitals, you dispatch Morphi, you'll earn guineas. This is your currency which you use to upgrade your ship, and upgrading your ship and your systems is a very large part of the game. You get a dazzling assortment of weapons, systems, and even new craft, and they're essential as your standard plasma beam is not sufficient to battle inhabitants of the later aethers, and you will require additional systems to keep your ship alive during this battle. The core of Morpheus's gameplay revolves around two phases. The first is the loadout phase. Your craft is safely docked inside a holding facility and you're ready to purchase or install upgrades. The second phase is when you're actually inside an aether and working on attacking the orbitals. So here we're loaded out, we're in the loadout screen, and there are three different areas of upgrades that you can purchase. The first is the ability to install a larger hull. Hulls will give you, as you upgrade your hull, you'll get a more efficient plasma beam. That's your primary weapon. But they also provide you slots for systems and mounts for weapons. The default hull you start with that we can see here, you only have one additional system slot. While there's two slots, the top one is always your energy display, but there's no weapons mounts available. Next up, you have systems. Systems are used to expand the capabilities in a number of areas. First off, you have power generation. These are provided by systems such as the inertia converter, which you'll see here, the IC4. This generates power by as you move the ship around at a certain speed, this will actually replace power in the system. Later on, you'll get solar cells, which will just accumulate power over time. The next type of system is energy storage. Here we've got the standard energy battery. These allow you to basically pool energy that you're generating when you have over half energy in your ship's primary bank. There are also more efficient high energy batteries later on that will allow you to store even more energy. The next type of systems are the defensive mechanisms. These are primarily centered around shield generators. Shield generators, you can store one or more on a ship, and they will provide a layer of defense for when enemies attack you. There are also electronic countermeasures. These are primarily designed to repel the Iridium mines. Yes, they're back with a vengeance. They're designed to basically provide ghost images and hopefully distract them from attacking you. In addition, for the shields, there are also two secondary systems. The shield replenishers, which come on later in the game, as well as a shield display indicator. These two systems are used to allow the shields to recharge. Without the replenisher, when a shield is drained, it's useless. And the shield display indicator provides a better means of displaying what your shield status is. And the final defensive system is the emergency demat unit, which you'll now see on screen. This is an automatic system that will kick in when your energy goes below 20%. At this point, it will activate your emergency escape system and return you to the loadout bay in order to have a chance to repair and install emergency systems. The next type of systems are more informative. There's the charge proximity indicator, the charge display unit, and the nucleus finder. These systems are all used for basically providing information about the energy status of a system and locating the nucleus, which is important when you complete a level. There's also the drone locator, which comes in handy when you install a drone, which is a particular type of weapon system. These aren't systems that you need to rely on to survive, but they're rather systems that help you do your job more efficiently. Finally, we have weapons. Weapons could really be grouped into four categories. The first off, we have what are called directional fire stations. These weapon mounts will be mounted in a slot in your ship, and they're systems that when you take control of them, you can fire manually in any of the given directions. These start with what are called four-way, which can fire in your cardinal north, south, east, west, or up, down, left, right. The eight-way, which include diagonal directions, and the extended angle weapons, which when you fire in a given direction, they'll fire in supporting directions as well, so you've got a little more coverage. The next type are what are called non-directable firing weapons. These are weapons that fire in multiple directions, either in sequence or simultaneously. So that includes rapid fire, and which four-way and eight-way variations, as well as simultaneous. And the obvious difference there being the rapid fire stations are weapons that fire in each given direction, while the simultaneous will fire in all the directions at once. The last type of weapon is the disruptors. These basically could be considered like a smart bomb. They're a kind of weapon that when you activate, they will charge up, requiring a bit of energy from the main systems, and attack all Morphi in the area. They are a bit of a risk because of that, so they're only a very special sort of use sparingly kind of scenario. In addition, there's also remote drones. These are little flyable units that will sit on a weapon slot that you can disengage from your main ship. You could use them to fly around in an area, and in conjunction with the drone locator system, you can move a bit of a distance away, and they have a slot for a weapon that you can engage. So those are the systems that you can commission on your ship, and the way you use that is you use the up and down control to scroll through the categories. Left and right allow you to browse within a category, and fire, providing you have the guineas available, will allow you to commission that system. Items are not immediately purchased, rather they're commissioned, so there'll be some time before they're available to install. Once you've finished outfitting your ship, you can hit the launch button and you'll be deployed into an ether. As you can see here, you'll see the formation of the orbitals within that ether appear. We'll launch in, and the first thing you need to really do here is basically fly around and locate those orbitals. You have the radar on the top of the screen to assist you. You can see pulses that link both the nucleus in the center, which you'll have just seen, as well as the orbitals themselves. Controls here are pretty straightforward. Use the joystick to move in that given direction. Press the fire button to activate your current weapon station. In this case, we only have the front station available on our default hull, so that's what will fire. When you find an orbital, you'll see you need to just position yourself, line that main gun up with it, and fire repeatedly. That will weaken the orbital, and in the process release more Morphi to engage. As you collapse an orbital, which you'll eventually see here, you can move on to the next one. For this first stage, there's only a single orbital that needs to be collapsed. Later stages, there are more elaborate patterns, and you'll need to collapse more of them. Once all of the orbitals of a level have collapsed, you'll hear the sort of deft shrill as they all collapse in sequence. The radar will turn red, and at this point you have approximately a minute to return to the nucleus, which will spew what a bonus Morphi, which is the little Morpheus logo. You destroy those for significant points. Once that time's out, you'll then be whisked back to the docking bay, ready to deploy for your next mission. When you're deployed inside an Aether, the elapsed time will accumulate. This is tracked as what are called time slices. They're approximately 2 minutes in length and don't apply when you're sitting in a loading bay. When you start the launch sequence, the first thing you'll see is the display of the orbital layout for the Aether, in addition to which level you're launching into, as well as the current time slice you're on. Time slices are also the means of providing pressure in the game, as when time slices roll over, you'll be given new weapons and systems to purchase, but other ones will be obsoleted. This continues until time slice 50, at which point there's no new systems available. And what that means is over the next 10 time slices until time slice 60, systems will disappear, but won't be replaced. So by time slice 60, you won't have any systems to purchase at all. In addition to this, when you're buying systems and weapons, they will also, any that become completed, will also be made available at the start of a new time slice. Okay, so what we're looking at here is, I've played a bit of way into a game, and I've now got enough to upgrade to the second hull. In addition to that, I've actually ordered a number of additional systems. Besides the inertia converter, I've also got an additional battery, as well as a shield generator. So we'll just watch this installing now, and I'll start talking about some hints and tips. So one of the big things with Morpheus is it's not an easy game. It's a game that you do need to have the manuals for. There is a cracked release floating around that has all the important information available, and that's probably the version you want to hunt down if you're not going to hunt an original copy of the game down. So a few tips that will help let you sort of click with the game a bit more. First off, you don't want to fly at full speed. Seriously, your ship is much faster than the Morphi, and ramming speed to ram them out is an efficient way to do it, but it will cost your energy. It will impact your energy levels, and that will do more damage sooner than later, and you really don't want to handle that. Next up, you really need to put a bit of time into Morpheus. You can't just fire it up, play for 5 minutes, and walk away. You need to be willing to put in a good half an hour or so, as one of the big things that helps when starting out is when you die and it's game over, you'll find that you start a new game, your balance will transfer over. And what this means is that you can have a couple of runs and not perform any upgrades, but keep that pulling that money for a later run, which will allow you to get off to a better start. And in particular, when you do have that money, the first system you want to go for is that IC4 inertia converter. By having that, you'll be able to have a good means of recharging your system's energy, and that becomes very important. I mean, from my own playing, it's really good to just have that initial system, and even with the base hull, play a few levels on that. And that's typically how I go from there. Also, when you do commission a system, providing you have the funds available, commission a replacement straight away. I've had plenty of cases where I've gone into battle with a newly installed inertia converter or another system, and I've faced waves where a particular enemy has basically destroyed that system straight away. If that happens, you need to be able to pull out, return to base, and have a new system available. You also really want to be ahead of the time slices. And what I mean by that is, all up in Morpheus, there's 50 levels, and you have 50 time slices when new items are added to the product catalog to buy. You really want to make sure that you're ahead of that, so that when you do reach some levels, you have a chance to take a little bit of time. Remember, time slices are 2 minutes in length, so you need to be careful of that. And I think the final thing is, once you have that inertia converter, keep saving money and then aim to get that second hull. And then I find that when you are ready for it, don't go for it straight away. You want to save up to make sure you've got other systems. In this footage, you'll see I had as I've mentioned earlier, I had a shield generator and a battery installed. One of the things that's worth noting is that when you install systems in a larger hull, the systems up front are the more exposed systems. I chose with this footage to have the battery and the shield up front, as the battery is a fairly cheap system to order, while the shields are one use, and I didn't have the shield replenishers available. whereas my inertia converter I deemed a significantly more critical system. So therefore having that installed in that first slot at the back made sure it would be destroyed last, as enemies can destroy your slots in sustained firepower. So that's Morpheus. It is all up, it's a game I find incredibly rewarding. It's not a fast-paced Twitch game that you want to just fire up and play. You have to be committed to what is a fairly complicated system, right? It doesn't help, in my opinion, that these systems have cryptic names, and that was designed in order to have the player reference the manual. And it's one of the things I think that has turned a lot of people off the game, at least from seeing other videos of it in action. So in playing it, what you really want to be able to do is sit down, have a copy of the manual handy, play it, practice, and just keep going. If you're going to hunt a physical copy down, ideally you want to grab the disc version of the game. The tape version doesn't allow you to save your progress, and on the disc version, when you beat level 8, or actually get to level 8, and you've earned a high score slot, you'll be able to save your progress to disc for a restart, and that allows you to restart on any level, and also gives you starting money as well. Besides that, the disc version is compatible with all C64 C128, so you can run it on either a PAL or NTSC system. It correctly detects the system and runs it at startup time. Of course, that means a C128 and C64 mode, to clarify. And of course, when running on a C128 in C64 mode, you actually get you get more objects on screen, so it becomes a little more hectic. The tape version of the game will only run on a PAL C64 or either C128 and C64 mode. All up, it's a game I've really grown to appreciate. I didn't play this back in the day. I actually got it recently in collecting, in aiming to get all of Andrew Braybrook's games on the machine, and it's one that I've really become enamored with. I found it incredibly rewarding, just getting to that stage of being able to afford an upgrade, being able to have systems in place, and it produces a game that is incredibly long term. I mean, so far I've only made it to about level 11, and there's a long way to go, and I'm sort of working on refining my strategies. But I like the fact that this is that kind of game that offers that. As well, I love a good shoot 'em up. I love a good arcade game. I do like these games that offer that kind of slow burn. And that's pretty much everything. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope the slightly different format hasn't completely turned you off. I wanted to do something a little different because I think my standard formula would have produced a very long video that wouldn't have been much fun to watch. Here, I could just cut to highlights, show an ever-evolving path, and go from there. If anyone's interested, I can upload a raw uncommented, the raw footage I have for this, so you can sort of see a full game in action. But other than that, thanks for subscribing if you haven't already done so, please consider doing so. Whilst this is my last video for this block or season, as I like to put it, I'll be back next year with more gameplays and hopefully create some good stuff that you will enjoy. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.